Well, while we're having this, reunion love fest, I just want to welcome you all to Hill Center. I'm Marianne Brownlow, and just so pleased to welcome back Kyle Dargan and to welcome for the first time Reginald Harris. We have been hosting these Life of a Poet conversations since 2013, I believe, and we've really switched things up in the last few years with Kyle, who's just been the most amazing curator and host. And just so pleased that Reggie is our guest this evening. Both Reggie and Kyle are Cave Canem Fellows, and as is Holly Bass and perhaps others here this evening. So this is just a rare opportunity to have this in-depth conversation. Please forgive the music that's coming up through. Hopefully they'll speak very loudly. Anyway, without further ado, please welcome Kyle Dargan and Reginald Harris. Oh, and I do want to mention that our friends and neighbor, East City Bookshop, woman-owned independent bookshop, just a couple of blocks away, are selling books by both Kyle and Reggie this evening, and a book signing will follow. So, please patronize them. Thank you so much, and take it away.
Hello.
There we are. Got it.
Yeah, okay.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming out tonight. I know the energy downtown hasn't been great, to say the least. So I always appreciate everyone that comes out. And I do consider this a form of resistance in a way. So thank you all for being here. I hope that some Baltimore would come out, some Washington would come out, some CC would come out, and I feel like we got the crowd that I hope for in terms of Constitution. And I think maybe to start to begin to link some things together, I was wondering, Reggie, if you could talk a bit about Lucille Clifton and Essex Hemphill, and what, if anything, you can say they taught or showed you about what was possible in poetry.
Okay. Good question. Thank you. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Marianne. Thank you, everyone. When I saw Essex, my first partner brought me down to DC to, I guess, the Cava House. It was a little carriage house in the back, or garage in the back of someone's house that they turned into a coffee house. And recognize the fact this was the 80s, before internet, before anything. So I can actually say the only black gay writers I knew were James Baldwin and me. I mean, in school, they didn't, no, they introduced you to Baldwin, they introduced you to Hughes, and some other people, but, that was it. There was no Cave Canem, very little, and I had a quote-unquote good liberal arts classic education. But anyway, so, but I was writing, and I came down, I was brought down, and I saw Essex and Wason perform, and I said, okay, that's it, I'm never writing ever again. It was just amazing. He was just amazing. So, dynamic in the mix of, his language, the music, the back and forth, the structure of his work. They did The Brass Rail, with those of you who know it, it's sort of like a double poem. That the first line is also that it's a poem for two voices, and one person reads the first line, another person reads the second line, and then they cross in the middle, and they wind up at the bottom saying the same things. Each one says the same thing that the other said at the beginning. It was like, what? So yeah, it was fantastic. So I guess from Essex, it would be possibility, and a word that a lot of poets and other writers, artists use a lot is permission. Seeing this person gave me permission to do my own crazy stuff, And Miss Lucille, it's, we talk about Miss Lucille as the hems come up through the floor because she was an angel. She was absolutely astonishing. And it was as much who she was as a person as what she put on the page. And I think she and, the first famous black writer I ever met was Gwendolyn Brooks. And, I was in college, I was in school, and it's sort of like, oh my goodness, Gwendolyn Brooks, this famous, she won this, she's famous. She comes in as if she was someone's, just regular person, like, oh yeah, she's sort of like one of my aunts or grandmothers, something like that. Very generous. She, gave all the black students chapbooks. At her reading, she started with the poems of her students, the teenagers that she was teaching in Chicago. And I said, what? Wait a minute, we're here to hear famous. No, this is by this 16-year-old, he's really wonderful. What an example. It's sort of like, this is who you're supposed to be. These people are who you're supposed to be. Which is good, because not every poet is like that. I'm just saying. So yeah, and the other thing about, actually both of them, but more Miss Lucille, is that I remember being in the library at the Pratt when I was working there, and there was another poet librarian working there. Hello, Rachel. And we were sitting there and we would just stare at a Lucille Clifton poem and go, how does she do that? How does she do that? I mean, there aren't that many words. There's so few words, no punctuation, and yet I read this and I'm knocked to the floor. How does she do that? So yeah, it's both personal example from both Lucille Clifton and Essex, because Essex was definitely very outspoken about his opinions and his feelings, and not just in the poetry, but in the rest of the world. And example, this is how you are supposed to, this is a way to move through the world as an engaged poet, writer, person in the world. So that was it.
Thank you. I do want to get to autogeography in your work, but there's something that I wanted to ask later, but since you brought it up now, I figured it might make a little more sense. You talked about the number of black poets that you knew of when you were a beginning writer. And I think, because someone might know the numbers better than me, what anniversary is Convict Con coming up on? It's like 35 or 30? 30. Right, it's coming up on 30 years. And I know the CC Prize is 25 this year, so that makes sense. So, a DC writer, Brian Gilmore, who some of you know, I would listen to he and Joel Diaz Porter, DJ Renegade, talk about the community that they grew up in sort of around that time when Cave Canem sort of came to be. And, one of the things that they would always say is that, back then, you knew when a black poet published a book because there weren't that many, that were coming out in a year.
Yeah.
And I think there's a certain perspective that Cave Canem poets of that generation have, because they knew the before Cave Canem, and now they've experienced the after. And this is, one of the things I was mentioning. There was a young lady who's doing, I guess, a series of interviews for the 30th anniversary.
Yeah.
And I think, she's in her 20s.
Yeah.
And I had to tell her, it's difficult for you to understand the significance because you grew up in a world where Cave Canem was a thing. And there's sort of generation of poets who can remember sort of the paucity and the loneliness of it that necessitated Cave Canem.
Yeah.
And they've gone on to see it too. So, and I only know about it because, I guess I'm sort of the generation under them, because I get to hear those stories from, people like Brian and Joel. And so I was wondering if you could say your own perspective on the change around black poetry that came with Cave Canem, and how you sort of been able to sort of progress and observe it over time.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. So if Cave Canem is going to be 30, I was not there in year 1, but I was there in year 2. Stop doing the math in your head about how old I am, please. I went as a child. Okay, I was a baby, and if I shouldn't say it because, and yeah, the DC crew came up. I mean, there was at that time a foundation that assisted Washington writers, so they came up, as a group, rolled deep into, so they were like the DC crew. But yes, I mean, you have to, there is no internet. There is no social media. I'm in library school here at Catholic, and there's tension between those people who want to bring computers into the profession and those who don't. Okay. And so, yeah, we didn't know. We didn't know. I mean, when I went, and we sat, everybody gathers and sits in a circle, and I had no idea that there actually were 30 live African American poets. It's like, what? Who are, what? Where did these people, how come I haven't heard of you? And so, in some ways my entire career has been, hey, have you heard about this person? Hey, it's sort of like spreading word, still in some ways thinking, well, yeah, you know this person, but you don't know them. It was, and you were isolated. It was very isolating. And, of course, unless you were fortunate enough to have, I don't know, at that time Toy Derricott was teaching in Pittsburgh, and then later you had your Zen master, Rita Dove, and all, but unless you had that, unless you actually had an African American or a non-white instructor, rarely would you get, African American poets, or even in Spanish you have Spanish poets, and German you read German, but as far as the rest of the world, it just wasn't there. So things have totally changed. which is fantastic. You know, I used to be able to, and this, as more and more people came into Cave Canem, but once upon a time, I could pick up a journal, look at the back, list of contributors, and go, oh yeah, that's Cave Canem, that's Cave Canem. You know, I could just pick them out. And now it's like, okay, first of all, there's too many, and second of all, I don't know, who are these people? Who are these young kids? I don't know them. But yeah, and it's wonderful. I mean, and it's such a rich and varied field. As you know, I often say one of the great things about Cave Canem is in the workshop, they want you to be the best you can be. You know, it's not like a school like, okay, well, we all write like this, or we all write like that. Or, it's not. It's just sort of, okay, that's what you want to do. Let's see how to make it better. And there was not that, there was a tension in the larger poetry community, I think, between page versus stage, and so there were actually page versus stage readings that were done, and so like, and yeah, there were page poets and there were stage poets and mixed, or people that went from page to stage and back and forth. Tahimba Jess, or he said, yeah, Patricia Smith, but that there was no, okay, you're over there, you're over here, so we're all in this together, because we got to be on this together because there aren't that many of us. So yeah, so that's what I have to say about that.
Yeah, I was exactly thinking about Tahimba because I think people know him now for Olio, but you know, my favorite poem of all time, I don't know if you can find it, but Tahimba has his poem, which is, you could argue it's a performance poem, Motherfucker.
Yes.
You know that poem.
Yes, oh, no, I know that poem.
Yes, it's an amazing poem. The title may be a little misleading.
Yeah, the title takes you one place, and
yeah.
the poem doesn't, and by the
But
end you go, oh.
I always remember him. I appreciate what he does now, but I always remember him from that too.
Yeah.
All right, so to the poems.
Yeah, okay.
I'm wondering if you could read,
Get to work. Yeah.
because I know it's a poem that you like to read, and also it cues up some things I want to ask. Approaching Baltimore.
Okay.
If you could read that piece for us.
Yeah, I kind of wondered. Okay. So, okay, so I used to begin readings with this, but then I realized that it sort of sets people up for what may not be, what they may not hear later, or the way that it's done. And also, for those of you who have it or will see it, it's on the page, but that's not necessarily how I do it. Approaching Baltimore. How the road leans to where I'm from. Magic City, y'all. Magic City, y'all. Magic City, y'all. Magic City. The imploded high-rise, empty houses, rows of busted teeth and a crooked smile, trash-filled corner lots, ghetto Chinese, yakame with ketchup, with or without egg, 6 wings and fries. Black-clad homeboys swimming down the block calling, loose wands, magic city, y'all, as they pull up sagging baggies, bop away. No easy way into this ugly beauty, once elegant lady in a tattered dress, magic city, y'all. No sweeping vistas from any approach. The highway curves, and there, a tangle of overpasses, bombed out streets behind a scrim of abandoned steel mills and auto plants, unused loading docks. Magic. Learn to live with, love imperfection, the close enough to write, whatever will make do. Magic city, y'all. Handsome men with knife scars across the face, exhausted women dragging 3 tattered children down the street. What happens to a dream transferred, outsourced, shuttered, boarded up? Which ways take you in and which way out? And what grows there? Magic City, y'all. Magic City, y'all. Magic City, y'all. Magic City, y'all. I haven't done that in a while. Thank you. Oh, okay.
Learn to live with love, imperfection. So what I wanted to ask you, because you're a very meticulous poet on the page. So my question is for you, in terms of practice, creatively, what does it mean to learn to love imperfection?
Even when I'm producing, when I'm writing something, it means stop beating yourself over the head if it's not perfect, because you can do that. I mean, it's very easy to say, oh yeah, I want to do this, and well, this isn't right, and that is right. You fiddle and fuss and turn words around and all that, and then there's that one last thing, and the whole thing falls apart. I know sometimes you act as though this poem is the last poem you will ever write. And it's like, and who knows, maybe it is. I mean, maybe you're going to, keel over. But, you can't, it's kind of, you can't really, at some point you got to let it go. Please, let it go. And, if it's in your head, if it's something that you are really concerned about, you're going to come back to it. That subject will come up, and you'll look at it from a different angle, or tackle it a different way, or, you finish a poem, and I tend to try to put them away for a while. Poems are like greens; they taste better the next day. So, the same poem that you think, oh, this is the best, this is fantastic. I mean, where's my Nobel? And you wake up the next morning and go, ooh, So, I mean, you gotta let it rest, let it settle. But yeah, I mean, it's not perfect. I mean, I think a lot of actors refuse to watch their own movies because, I should have done this. That's not, this should have been, but this was great. Everybody loved it. Yeah, but, I could have done that a little, it's just, at some point, just relax and say, I'm doing the best I can. This is the best that I can do right now, and I'll try something else, and I'll do it again, or I'll come back and do it later. Yeah.
Maybe to tie it back to Lucille Clifton, that there's a certain possibility or potential for authenticity when you're not obsessed over something which is not real, which is perfection.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't realize that perfection isn't real. I mean, what?
Because there are things that you think are perfect. They're just not things that you made.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, there's that thing that was said in the play and the movie Amadeus about Mozart. He just sort of sat down, no mistakes. It was perfect. And it's like, I mean, that sounds great. And you just sort of take that in and you go, oh my God, but really? Maybe just burn them. And you didn't know how much work he put into it, the secret is to make it seem effortless, but, in fact, you're up all night. But yeah, I mean, there's no perfect. There really isn't. There's very damn good, but, perfect? I don't know.
So, I mean, to speak of effort, the poem, the term poetry collection can be a little deceptive, because I think initially, right, that's really what a poetry collection was. It was like this sequence of work or body of work that I wrote in a certain period of time. Yeah. It is now collected, therefore it is a collection. Yeah. And I think the poetry collection has evolved a lot from that point, right? There's a lot more intention behind the reading experience. I mean, there was always intention with the sequencing of poems, but I think now there's an expectation, which probably doesn't happen that often, that people read poetry collections from beginning to the end, and you have one experience. Like, we all may want to design a book that way, but it's rare that it's consumed in that fashion. But to that idea of collecting and arranging this, right? Because, you know, this was a book that it took some time to get to. When did you know? When did you know it was a book in that sense, that you had curated a particular reading experience that you were ready to release into the world?
I'm sitting here laughing because the original manuscript of that was exactly what you said before. It's sort of like everything here, just here, you know. Somebody who I'm eternally grateful for pulled my coat and said, you know, this is there's good stuff in there, but you know, you need to cut that. It needs focus. You know, and so I went back in and said, okay, well, how do I tie everything together? And that's how this became about movement and travel in different cities and different, being different people in different places. Because I saw that as something that I sort of came back to. You know, and because I didn't know. You know, I mean, there are now, I guess, a few how to create a manuscript workshops and things, but I didn't know. And I also did not have a project, because at this time, and even now, maybe, but it sort of felt for a while that every book was a project. You know, you mentioned Olio, you know, obviously. The Big Smoke, you know, and you can just sort of say all these things that are, this is a subject, this is the subject that we're going to deal with and going to talk about. I tend not to be like that. I did have a project once, which I don't know, may or may not come back, I don't know, but I talked about it too much as opposed to actually writing. And part of the point of the work was listening to the voices of these people and trying to put down what they say or how they phrase things, because I was sort of fascinated by the way they used language and how they spoke or what they said in interviews, and so I was like, this is interesting. And so, you know, I'm talking about it, not writing, so they stopped talking to me. It's like, okay, fine. So, you know, I learned my lesson. So now I don't, if I'm working on something, I'm not going to tell you, because I'm scared, you know, that sort of made me superstitious. But yeah, I mean, it's sort of difficult when you don't have, when everybody, it seems as though everybody else is doing a project book. And I'm like, okay. Yeah.
But I think we might be getting away from that because I'm not sure we're in an era where people have the same attention span for that kind of book too. Like, I think people may want books that they can sort of like navigate in their own way, as opposed to you sort of need to read this book along the lines of the project. But to the idea of voices, I have a really weird question to ask you after this poem, so I'm just warning you now. Okay. But I wonder if you could read Reunion.
Okay.
And then
okay.
We'll see how you feel about this question.
Now I'm worried. Reunion. Basquiat's on the back steps with my niece. helping her to draw a picture of us all, tossing back gray dreadlocks as they fall into his eyes. My sister argues politics with Martin and Coretta in the backyard over ribs from Mayor Bearden's cooking. Malcolm puts his 2 cents in between bites of peas and rice. My grandfather flirts with Billy as they remember the old days on the avenue in West Baltimore. Prez brushes off his pork pie hat and offers to get my grandmother something from the dessert table. She declines, full from her second helping of Duke Ellington's homemade apple pie. Essex and Joe Beam line dance with Audrey and Pat Parker, while Lesotho Saint Melvin Dixon and my partner critique from the picnic table off to one side. Shamefaced, my father shows up late, as always, with Charlie Parker and Bud Powell in tow. Where have you all been, my mother asks. She gets a kiss and sheepish grin, but no reply.
So here's the weird question.
Okay.
Have you seen any of the Sora 2 stuff that's been circulating? Okay, your face tells me maybe not. Mm-hmm. So OpenAI's new video creating generative AI, it has this ability to produce these really lifelike videos of not only people who are alive now, if you give it that feedback, but also historical figures. One thing I noticed is like so many MLK SOAR videos, like, and like stuff that makes me want to like kick somebody in the head, like MLK doing stand-up comedy, MLK in WWE wrestling, right?
Oh my God, I'm glad I hadn't seen
it.
And
and at first I was wondering like, why so much MLK? Then I realized like, oh, it's because he's dead and he can't sue them. Yeah. Right. Because
he's America's favorite black person.
Right.
At least with a certain strip of MLK.
Right.
Is
no Obama stuff, and I'm like, because Obama will sue you.
No,
that's why.
No, let's not talk about that anti-Vietnam speech. No.
Right. But here's my question to the poem. I was reading this and wondering, well, in a way, someone could argue like this is the poetic version of that. You're sort of reanimating all of these historical figures. And I'm wondering if you could say why you would consider that what you're doing significantly different than what people are doing with these historical figures in AI.
I think what kind of violence am I doing to their image with this? I mean, the only thing that is probably not true is Duke Ellington making pies, probably, and who knows? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've read a biography, and maybe I don't know. He probably had a lady bake it for him, but whatever, And what am I selling? I'm not selling anything. Whereas all of that is about commerce. It's about profit, for the most part. Like I said, I haven't seen those, and now that you say that, I'm not particularly
it's not
sure.
worth it, don't.
Yeah, I don't particularly want to. I sort of laugh because I've got a, somebody did a church fan with MLK with a do-rag, which is sort of hilarious to me. But I got that in Harlem, so it was like it's sort of like, this is a joke between us. But no, I mean, it's not about selling something. It's not about saying they would have supported this or that. They, would have bought, I don't know, this loaf of bread versus that, or something like that. It's just, this is what I grew up, I mean, the musician, I grew up, I was raised by grandparents, basically, so these are the musicians that they knew. These are the writers that I admired and grew up with, and my family, and so it's sort of like, it's almost, speaking of the title, it's almost an autobiography. It's sort of like, this is what's in my head. These are the people who formed me. This is what shaped me, and the idea of, oh, all these people are in here. So it would be wonderful if we got them all together and we sort of hung out and sort of like that. But it's not, here's Malcolm X, now buy this soap.
Yeah, you say it's sort of more representative than performative.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. I'm not fake. This is me. This is me. This is what's in my head.
Right.
These are the people. This is what breathes in me. So
What sort of, I guess, answers, because the question of why, like, I can read this poem Reunion and I can ask you this question and be like, well, why do this with these historical figures? And your answer is because it's me.
Mm-hmm.
But like when I ask that same question of the MLK doing stand-up comedy video, why?
Yeah.
I feel like there's no satisfying answer that comes back from that.
Right.
Aside from because, which doesn't really.
I mean, yeah. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should. Which somebody should tell Elon and Zuckerberg and there's a whole range of people. Peter Thiel, just because you can, think about it. Why? And I know their answer is because it'll make me more money. But, think about it. Why are you doing this? Which is a good thing to bring it back to poetry. Why are you writing this? There's a whole thing about, when people talk about writing, I've heard a number of people talk about questions, should I tell this story or somebody else's story? Should I reveal this about my family or somebody else's family? Well, why are you doing it? What is your intent? What do you hope to get out of telling that story? What do you hope that other people will get from telling that story, other than, ooh, they were bad? That's easy. No, it shouldn't be easy. There should be a reason. There should be a deep reason, not just, oh, well, what the hell?
Yeah, and that's always the hole that I, for now, poke in the idea of artificial intelligence. It's like, I can't imagine the program ever having intent. It satisfies a command, but that's not the same thing as having a genuine attempt, which is also good advice for writers. Like, when you think you want to do something, do you understand your intent? Or are you just doing it because at some point you need to work your way into that awareness of why I'm doing this?
Right, right. Well, I think sometimes you do come to the page with, a question. So like, this bothers me, and so I'm going to write about this and over again. And, particular things or particular subjects come back because you're trying to work through what happened, what does this mean, why did they do this or they didn't do that. But yes, you're right. People are worried about, well, first of all, I want to say something that I heard from someone that studies artificial intelligence, and they say that, first of all, that AI, artificial intelligence, is really a great marketing tool, that name. You might as well call it a ham sandwich. Because, yes, it's artificial, but is it intelligent? Well, first of all, what is intelligence? And secondly, no, it's not. It's faster. It gets this huge amount of information and says, basically, this is the average. This is what most people say about this when you go to Google now, which gives a little AI brief before you even get to the links. I scanned everything. This is what most people say. Well, is that true? No, this is what most people say. And is that intelligent? Maybe not. But yeah, you're right. It's intent. Right now, we are asking it questions. We are asking it to do things, and it is just responding. It's just answering. Quickly or in an interesting way. It notices patterns better than humans do. But yeah, yeah, I can write a poem. It can write a poem, but you have to say, write a poem in the style of Kyle Dart. Write a poem in the style of Robert Frost. It can do that. Write a poem and use these words, right? You have to tell it something. You go to these machines and you say, write a poem, and they'll say, about what? How? How long? They'll ask you all these questions, and it'll produce this because you gave it that input, but it's not thinking. It's not really thinking. It's just sort of go, oh, you asked me for this, yes, sir, I'll do it. But for it to sit back in the middle of the night, with some extra processing power, oh, I think I'll write a poem. At least not yet. I mean, it's going to be years in the future, maybe if it happens. But no.
Yeah, that's also why I don't like that term hallucination, because I'll like the machine hasn't lived hard enough a life to hallucinate. So we need to keep some things for ourselves.
Tech people are very good at language, because when they talk about a machine hallucinating, another word for that is lie.
Or just error.
Or wrong, error.
Error.
Oh, they never say error. You notice that? There's never any error. There's never any mistake. We don't use those words. I forgot what Mr. Musk says every time one of his rockets blows up. But it's not, it was a mistake or something happened. It was failure in blah, 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 blah. It didn't work, man. Come on. Try again. Or don't try again. But yeah, error, mistake, no, we do not use those words.
Yeah. Well, two writerly decisions. One thing you always do at these events is have a talk through, because I don't think many people get the opportunity to sit down with a poet and actually have them explain some of the decisions behind the work. So I think, right, Marianne, everyone has a poem on the back or the front somewhere of your program. That poem is Among the Players, which is set in DuPont Circle, which I am not sure if it's roped off at this point. I haven't been through. Oh, yeah, they've been shutting down DuPont Circle for lots of stupid reasons lately. But I was hoping you could read this poem for us, and then I can just ask you some questions about how you brought this piece together. It's on page 43, I believe. Two.
No, 43. Yeah. You're right. You know my book better than I do. And before you start asking questions, I, want to say something that I wish I heard somebody else say in these conversations when you do this. You assume that I actually know what I'm doing.
No, none of you get off the hook.
I don't know, it came out of somewhere. Among the players, the city swirls around them like a thought. Undisturbed grandmasters of the streets, plotting, huddling over boards of black and tan, moving plastic pieces with practiced ease. A furtive web of hustlers, smiling the smile of those who know but do not tell, scanning unsuspecting marks. Poker-playing pockets sit beside them, deep inside the music of the game, pulling rhythms from the rise and fall of stakes, the dance of knight and pawn, queen and sudden ace, the wheeling race of traffic with the dark and a lone jackhammer's stuttered final song.
So I will adjust my questions.
Mm-hmm. Okay. You don't have to, I'm kidding.
No, it's just a slight adjustment.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than asking you what you were doing, I'll ask you what you think you were doing. So, first off, it's not a sonnet, but it's close.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So why do you think you didn't push for the sonnet, or you were comfortable staying at, I believe it's 12? 12 lines, 12, 13, about that?
12.
12.
Well, you know, Shakespeare has a 12-line sonnet, so
Yeah.
there.
Well, technically.
Push for the sonnet. It's because I was afraid of it in some ways. I'm sort of I'm fascinated by form, but I don't do it very often, which is a strange thing to say because a couple of years ago for Coffee Ghanem, we did a workshop on African American sonnets and the way that people have used it and twisted it and torqued it. You mentioned Jericho for Wapa and his duplex. But yeah, I find form fascinating. I find people that can do form really astonishing. And it's like, how do you do that? It's really, and, I tried. I've done a few. But at this point, I didn't want to push it to 2 more lines. Because I guess we were talking about, adding and subtracting and writing and revision. What would I put in? Where would I put it? What would I add? What would I, what more does this need would be in my head? And say, no, this is okay. This is it. They're close enough to write, right? This is, okay, yeah, fine. So there's that. In case you hadn't noticed, that is DJ Renegade as the poker-playing poet. So
I figured.
That's obvious. DC and at poker, and it's him. So yeah.
The only professional gambler poet that I know.
Yes.
Deserves a screenplay.
Yes.
Another question is, so the poem is about DuPont Circle, which is a physical, one of the many physical circles in the city, traffic circles. And as I read the poem, I wonder, how is Reggie trying to capture that sense of circling in the piece? And it's not, it's not sort of a Doug Kearney kind of thing where like the shape is on the page,
Yeah.
right? So I think, where is it? And I feel like it's the music that is circling the figures in the poem. And I'm wondering, was that part of your project for the piece?
Yes. Yes. I think, particularly, I think I also wanted in here some sort of twisting, and, I don't know, you noticed the alliteration, which makes it a little bit hard to read, poker-playing poets. But yeah, there's always the plastic pieces with practices, but there's always music in my head. I like flow. I want to flow. Even in something that sort of seems a little bit disjointed. There are some poems here that are sort of like, it's like these phrases are all over the map, and they don't seem, but at least to me, they sort of flow, they connect. And so I'm always, even though I may not be listening to a piece of music, or it's not written to a piece of music, like a lyric or something, but it has to have music. It has to sing somehow, in some way. That's very important to me, because I, grew up listening to all different types of music, and I still do. I wanted, I hope there is some kind of a, either circle or movement or there's something going on that you're not stationary. You might be stationary, but there's all this stuff going on around you, sort of swirling around you, as if you were in the middle of a circle and all this stuff is going on.
And one last question about this piece. So I think what can get lost sometimes in free verse poetry is the intention behind where the poet decides to stop the line. You know, what we think of as an sort of end stopped or end jam line. And I think a lot of times people just read through the lines without taking a moment to think there was probably a reason why that's the last word on the line, or there's probably a reason that those words are together on a line. So if you can sort of looking back at this piece, like is there one particular line, like, you know, back to that idea, like that feeling that you have when you write something, is there one line that you sort of crafted, like where you wrote the line and you were like, yeah, that's doing something if I stop that right there?
I don't know. I'm looking at the breaks.
I mean, I have a few, but I want to hear.
Yeah. Okay. No.
No.
I am interested in you, what you're saying. Well, just looking now, the web of hustlers smile and the smile of those who know but do not tell, scanning unsuspecting marks. I could put scanning down there on the same line as unsuspecting marks, or put unsuspecting's a little long. No, I don't, because I like at least some kind of a shape. It may not be. I don't want it to be ungainly, basically. You know, it's got to look good. You know, so and unsuspecting at the end of that would have been a little long, or even unsuspect. No, that doesn't work. But yeah, it sort of. It leaves you sort of, it sort of urges you, there's no mark of punctuation there, because you go scanning what? Unsuspecting. And then it's sort of, oh, yeah, okay.
I mean, I also feel like it asks you to do that scanning for a moment.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, exactly.
Because the scanning opens out into white space.
Yeah. I know poems, for me, they tell you how to read them. You know, if you look at it, this is how you're supposed to read it. You know, I know I picked that up from Samuel or Delaney, who said his books tell you how to read them. They're sort of difficult, but if you persist, they'll explain themselves as you go through. And so, you know, there should be a reason why you put that there, why, you know, why the first line is a full sentence and then you stop. You know, there has to be some kind of reason why. And of course, commas, you know, are a short pause or a breath. So yeah, I do think about that. I think about that a lot. Where do I break this? Where do I end this? Is it does it look right in a sense? Does it feel right? Is this how I want people to approach this or go into this? So yeah, I think about that quite a bit.
Yeah, I think that idea, to go back to Essex and Lucille, does it look right? Does it feel right? Mm-hmm. If you're working between those poles, you're doing something.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah, and even though it's on the page, poetry is the body. You know, we breathe in and out, even when you're, you know, I assume that most people hear a voice in their head as they're reading silently or whatever, so it has to be aerated, it has to be voiced. And so I, you know, probably from Essex, but also the way that Miss Lucille read, too. It's coming from someone, it's coming from a person, it's coming from the body. And so I read everything aloud as I'm working, as I'm writing, you know, and even though there are lines that can trip you up. It even tripped me up. I have read that, and I know this is a danger point. I need to slow down. And so maybe the reader should slow down here, you know, or hit those P's, you know, hard. But yeah, I have to hear it. I have to hear the music. I have to hear it.
Well, Reggie, thank you for letting us hear you. I told you the hour would go fast. And sharing your generous and vulnerable insights
Thank you.
with us. Everyone, please, a round of applause for Reginald Harris.
Thank you.
And again, there are copies of Autogeography outside if you want to get a copy and have Reggie sign it before we head out for the evening. And I think that's it for us for the year, right? Well,
We're coming back in 2026.
yeah, I mean, I'll be here. So
So thank you both.